Hello, welcome back to the MacGuffin tape. My name is Mickey17, and this is
You have to introduce me, you said.
Mickey18. Mickey16 unfortunately got killed in the process of making the show. No, I'm just joking. I'm Michael, joined here by Allah. Dario unfortunately couldn't join us today, but like you heard, we are here to talk about Mickey17, the new movie by Bong Joon-ho, which you might know from Parasite. Have you seen any other movies by Bong Joon-ho?
Well, of course, The Parasite, Memories of Murder. What else is there? I feel like that's probably it from what I saw. Ah, no, Snowpiercer, of course. So that makes it four movies.
Okay, then you have seen.
Which actually, I no, I thought maybe The Host was before, but actually Memories of Murder is an older film. So Memories of Murder was 2003, Snowpiercer 2013, Parasite 19, and now Mickey 17, 2025. Have you seen anything else?
Yeah, I've seen Parasite, of course, which is amazing, and I've also seen Snowpiercer, which I also really like. But yeah, I would love to watch more movies. I mean, his Korean movies, I guess, because Mickey 17 is his sort of third, I think, American production. I mean, the
Hmm.
first one was Snowpiercer, then he also did Okja,
Hmm.
which I haven't seen, and now Mickey 17. I'm not sure if it's his biggest film yet, budget-wise. I think it was, let me just check, produced with Warner Bros. Yeah, it costs around 118 million. So yeah, huge movie. Yeah, it's Warner Bros.
Is
Picture.
that more or less than Parasite?
Let me check this as well.
Must be more.
I'm guessing it's Parasite. Yeah, Parasite was 11 million.
Yeah, well, I mean, Mickey 17, of course, also has a lot of visual production that he needed money for.
Yes, yeah, for sure.
And bigger names and yeah,
Bigger
everything
names.
else.
Yeah. Yeah, so I want to ask you first, give me your spoiler-free impression, what you
Oh my
think of the
goodness.
movie?
I was really hoping that you can take the lead on this one because like I don't know what to say. Just like the summary you want from me, or what do you want?
Yeah, just your thoughts.
My thoughts in general. My
Hmm.
thoughts are that it being a second movie on my double feature on Friday, I was maybe not emotionally invested and prepared physically anymore to analyze it so well, but I that's why I would say that I don't really have an opinion that is like very strong and pronounced. It was okay. I can't really say that I enjoyed it immensely. I would say that the second part, which is, I think, funny because I feel like people criticize the second part more. I enjoyed the second part more because for me, this like introduction into the story was a little bit too drawn out and I don't know. I feel like the second part was a little more snappy and that's why I was more kind of present watching it. But yeah, so those are, I guess, my thoughts so far. But
Hmm.
as we talk more, I might say something more, of course.
Yeah. No, but for sure, I would agree. Like the first half is a lot of introduction to the universe, to the characters, and plot-wise, there's not too much happening in the sense of, well, there are things happening, but it's not the main conflict, let's say. And then I guess the second half is where the film also shifts into more action-based movie
Mhm.
or sci-fi movie. Yeah, and I guess the scenes are shorter. I don't know whether the plot moves along quicker, I would say. For me, I love this movie. I mean, I couldn't stop watching it. I couldn't stop taking my eyes off Robert Pattinson, who I thought was
Oh,
amazing. Uh, no, really, I mean, he was so entertaining and funny, I think,
that
as
I
well.
agree with. Yeah.
And it's such a different role for him. I think,
Those are two roles.
It's yeah, you're right. It's two roles. I don't know if his last role was Batman, but that's at least for me like the last big thing I saw him in. So yeah, it's completely different, and I don't know if he had really done comedy in a way because this is a sort of
What
sci-fi
about
comedy movie.
Twilight?
What about Twilight? Yeah, but
Twilight is a comedy for you. Come on.
no, but I think here in this movie he expands his range even more because he was yeah, like you said, known for Twilight in the beginning and Harry Potter, and then he started making these sort of more into independent movies with have you seen his movie where he
Good
was in
time.
this the yeah, is that the
Or what is
Safdie's
it?
movie? The movie by the Safdie's brothers?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
exactly. I
Yeah.
I think I have seen it, yeah.
Mhm. And then he also did The Lighthouse with Robert Eggers, which I really liked, which is also in sort of a way, for me, it's sort of a comedy, but there he also gets to show his how great he is with accents. Yeah.
Oh, that also was in The King with Timothy Chalamet. I loved him there. He had
Mm.
such a tiny role, to be fair, but for that role, I was like, "Oh, can you stay longer, please?"
Yeah, I completely forgot about that. Yeah, he was in that as well. I think it's a Netflix movie, which I think not a lot of people saw, but yeah, that's right. He was in there. Yeah. And then he, of course, did Tenet as well with Nolan, and then Batman.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm probably forgetting a couple of things he's done.
All the Time was also the one between Tenet and the Batman.
Right. Yeah, I haven't seen that one, but
I remember that I watched it on a flight to Russia, which in itself was already stressful enough. And then on top of that, I put this very depressing movie, so had a great time. But
hmm
yeah, it was I don't really remember him in particular in that movie, but I remember it being good.
hmm Yeah, and I mean, yeah, it's just like I said, he's really, really funny in this one. Something different that we haven't seen him in yet. And I
I would
think.
say probably he after, I mean, I don't know, but probably after Twilight or in general, he tried to go for more serious roles to get established as a serious actor.
hmm
Um, which he managed, of course. But maybe that was the priority and not the comedic role. So I also don't really remember him in more,
Yeah,
yeah, in a role kind of similar to Mickey 17.
but I think this is so funny because I mean, he was the Batman before, at least for me, and then doing this is just completely different. And but I think it's amazing, huh, what he
Mhm.
does in this film. And the sort of the comedy is also a lot about yeah, in the script and I think in the editing and the music. That's I think the other big aspect that I really enjoyed about this. Yeah, about this film is
Tell me more, because I
the
have
music. Yeah.
criticism about music.
Okay. So I don't know the music for me it's hard to describe. But I feel like it always really conveyed the tone or the emotion of the scenes really well. And I did the exercise of listening to the soundtrack just this week in preparation for the show, and it was a fun exercise because I was trying to match, okay, this song, what scene was it played in? I mean, you can sort of guess by the title of the song, but it was still difficult. The music, it's sort of a classical soundtrack, but it's also, I think there's one song in there that's bit of a tango song as well, and then we have a waltz. So I think what they were trying to go for, Bong Joon-ho and the composer is Jung Jae-il, I think, is to have that sort of contrast between the classical music with the sort of serious or homonymous, and then you have these very silly things happening in the movie, like well, related to Mickey's character, mostly in the beginning where he sort of gets reprinted and relives his life and all that insanity that happens in there.
Mhm. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I should have done that as well, listen to the soundtrack separately, because I felt like there was not enough music there.
Hmm.
Especially in the beginning, there were some parts of the movie where it's like, where's the music? I felt like could be the thing that would keep me alive and awake. Because in the beginning I really was drifting away quite a bit from it. Or like not in the very beginning, but more like in the second half of the beginning, if you can say that. So I don't know really. I feel like for me it didn't register so much what music there was.
Yeah.
Um, maybe I would have to check it out again to know exactly, but yeah, that was kind of how I felt about it.
I have the same thing that your mood getting into a movie is so crucial on how you're going to react
Yeah, for
to
sure.
the movie itself. So yeah, for me, at least nowadays, I try to watch a movie by the mood I'm in. So if I'm not in the mood to watch a certain type of movie, I usually don't watch it because I know, okay, that's going to affect my
Mhm.
experience, if you will.
Mhm. No, I re can't really say that I wasn't in the mood in that way. I was just more, I guess I was already a little tired, but I still felt like I could pull it off. So I did go to watch it. And I don't know, I wouldn't say that I was somehow, yeah, not in the mood for an action film or for, well, that's kind of difficult to say because you can't. I guess we have to talk about the genres to be able to define what Mickey really is, because I feel like you can't really call it an action film. You can't really call it a comedy. You can call it a drama for sure, but like because I feel like Bong Joon-ho generally mixes genres a lot, so you can't really. He kind of as if he is using the genres to pull you in, but
Mhm.
he doesn't really play within them. He just like uses them for his advantage to pull different audiences in to watch the film. But in the end, it's going to be such a mix that it's not going to be anything that belongs to any particular genre. And I feel like that's again the case here.
Yeah, but
Because
that's
also, if you think about Parasites, I guess you can call it a comedy for a very long part of the film or a satire, but in the end of the film, it turns everything on its head and you can't laugh anymore, really. Or you can, but it depends, I guess. Depends on how you look at it. And same, I guess you can say here, because all I wanted to do when I left this movie was cry. So I wouldn't call it a comedy necessarily.
Mhm. Yeah, I agree. I think I mean, this is just the description, I think, on the Wikipedia page, but it's a great point that you bring up. Yeah, he absolutely does play with these genres and uses them to his advantage and sort of not misleads the audience, but sort of so there are quick changes between tones or between genres that provoke a certain feeling in you. For me, at least, a lot of the time it was well, it was laugh out loud fun sometimes.
Mhm.
And but in some other instances, okay, the movie turns a bit more reflective or more critical, and yeah, I think that's really entertaining as well, that you can have those different feelings and thoughts throughout the movie. Maybe one thing that I didn't do, I didn't watch or see too many reactions about the movie, but one thing that I did see or a comment maybe that it was a bit less subtle than his other films like Parasite or his Korean films.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, I guess you could say that for the other characters, which we haven't mentioned yet. I mean, the other sort of main characters in my view are Mark Ruffalo and Tony Collette, who play sort of
Mhm.
these leaders, dictators of this expedition. What do you think of them in
Um,
particular?
just before we go into that, I wanted to say something about less subtle because I feel like this criticism is both valid and invalid, because I feel like when he is making a Korean film, it's a film that is aimed at a particular audience. Of course, now people tend to watch more of different things, but I feel like still the American audience is not very open to other films that are not produced in America. So I feel like the movies like Parasite or Memories of Murder, they're made more with the thought of Korean audience in mind. So it's the question of a target group, right? And I feel like in that way he can be more subtle, and he knows that it will hit. But in terms of American films, which in general tend to be less subtle, again, I don't know if you can criticize Mickey 17 for being less subtle, because it is an American production, American Korean, but still it is very much focused on the American target audience or on a broader audience, because of course American films are kind of for everyone. So I don't know, like for me, this in a way is, yeah, as I said, like both valid and invalid. You kind of have to think about the background of it, the background of why it is less subtle. But again, back to the point of Mark Ruffalo and Toni Collette. To be honest, I, of course, it was great acting and stuff, but for me, this whole parody of Trump is getting a little old. I feel like this is not original anymore. Everybody and their mother is doing that. So I don't know. I'm sure like you can come up with something more interesting and original without portraying straight off just a Trump-esque character. And that was kind of a little bit of a problem for me as well watching it, because I thought, well, yeah, but kind of old.
Yeah.
Toni Collette, of course, is, I guess, a different matter, because you can't really, how could I put it? This is like a duo, right? A villain duo. And you generally, I guess, don't really see that very often, that a villain is split in two. And that was, I guess, interesting. And generally, Toni Collette is amazing. Whatever she does is always great. So you can't really pinpoint what her character was based on. I'm sure you can kind of make assumptions, but there's no character or no personality in the real world that was obviously the inspiration for it, at least for me. So that was a more interesting character, I thought,
Hmm. Yeah.
than
Hmm.
Mark Ruffalo's character.
I totally agreed with the subtleties argument that there are some like cultural subtleties in the way that, okay, things specific for the Korean culture or the American culture. And I guess I don't know how well versed Bong Joon-ho is in American culture. Maybe there are subtleties missing in there, but I think the movie is really subtle in what we've been saying before, in the sense that it this genre mix and this shift of tone, and those changes, I feel like that's where sort of the message of the movie lies, or some of the topics he wants to explore. And yeah, those are a bit subtler, I would think. Um, I also agree on the point that, yeah, maybe Mark Ruffalo playing sort of a Trump impersonation is getting old, and I think that's what they were going for, that it was really in your face, but maybe a bit too much. But yeah, anyway, I think he is very Trumpish, maybe especially in the way he speaks and the way that he wants to be the center of attention. But there are some other nuances which I maybe haven't seen in Trump, or don't. I mean,
Yeah, but that's kind of my problem with it, that those, if only they would be able to introduce some kind of a hint or an allusion into the reference for this character being Trump, fine, I have no problem with that. But you don't have to do a full-blown impersonation for that. because it's not an SNL sketch. It's a movie. Come on, you can do better than that. I don't know. I feel like this was you could definitely play around with it in a way that would be more original. And in general, I feel like there's just so much going on that is criticizing Trump through film and comedy that, yeah, as I said, it's just like not it's not interesting anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mhm. Yeah, yeah, for sure.
And like every single actor already did some kind of an impersonation. Um, I mean, of course, I don't count The Apprentice because this is an actual biography or an attempted biography of Trump, so I don't count that. But all kinds of other things like Alec Baldwin playing Trump on in an SNL sketch is like the first thing that comes to mind for me. And you can do so many of that, you know, like you can try something else out. And
Mhm.
of course, like the visually, like the teeth, the very orangey skin tone, you know, like this is all very obvious.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's sort of the appearance that it's very Trumpish. Huh?
Hmm.
The other main actress is Naomi Aki, I think that's her name, who plays Naisha is the character's name.
Nasha,
Nasha,
Nasha
that's right. Huh? Who is sort of the love interest and companion of the Mickeys. Uh,
of the
he
Mickeys.
of the
Yeah, I have some stuff to say about that as
okay,
well.
we'll get into that. And yeah, she was in The End of the Fucking World, for
Oh
example, which we
yeah,
both have seen. Yeah,
that's true.
and
In the
she,
second season, right?
yes, I think that's true. Yeah,
Alright.
and she's yes, she plays yeah an interesting role here also with she's sort of a security, or she is a security agent in this expedition, and she gets to show off a bit of her um, physical skills more towards the end of the movie. So that was also cool. The other two actors that I know of are, well, Stephen Yeun. Um,
Oh, he was so good. That to be honest, like this generated most fun moments for me. Like whenever he was in the scene, it was gonna be funny for me. Because like probably I can't say that I had a lot of laugh out loud moments, but when I did, he was in them.
mhm.
And the one I can think of in particular is when he is coming into the this area where the cells are, where they're locked up, and he's like crawling from some kind of a crawl space. And I thought, okay, this was really cool.
Yeah, that's really funny. Yeah, yeah, the physical humor in this movie, I think it's great. Yeah, Stephen Yeun also in a very different role, I would say, from what he normally does, sort of an anti-hero, no, not an anti-hero, but
Well,
how would
if
you?
you saw Beef, then you wouldn't say so.
Oh, right, I haven't seen
It's I
these.
feel like it's a very similar type of well, not like a similar type of role, I guess, but just in general, the this anti-hero, yeah, like kind of not a very morally ambiguous person, I guess you could say.
Hmm.
So so that was I saw him like that before, but it was still I guess not a very common role for him in
Yeah,
general.
I haven't seen him in Beef. For me, currently he's Invincible, this superhero animated character,
Oh.
and before that, yeah, of course, the movie that I really liked is Minari,
Hmm.
also a Korean movie. And then the other actor that I know is Cameron Britton, who plays sort of the chief researcher, and Cameron
Hmm.
Britton
Hmm.
was one of the what's it called, criminals in Mindhunter.
Yeah, the serial
Sort of.
killer,
Yeah,
Ed Kemper.
Ed Kemper, that's right. And he was also in the Umbrella Academy, I think.
If you need a name of a serial killer, you know where who to ask. Yeah, he was also in the Umbrella Academy. I love him. Like also whatever he does, he's also very subtle in his comedy because of course we don't count Mindhunter here, but if you watch him um in the Umbrella Academy, it's like a little bit of a deadpan comedy sometimes with him, and I feel like it's the same here. He's
Hmm.
really good.
Hmm. yeah, that's I guess the sort of the main cast and the most
Hmm.
well-known actors to us. Shall we get more into details and into spoilers, into in-depth discussion?
Okay, so spoiler alert. Yeah, I mean, let me just say something else here. If we are going into the plot more or more into detail, I must say I have issues with how many themes were kind of started off but never finished because it seems to me like the narrative was a little bit too ambitious and it didn't really work out very well in the end because there were a lot of plot lines that were never really tied in any way. For example, the one with the criminals that they were running away from the Earth. Okay, the one guy that was supposed to be there was somehow on this ship, and yeah, it somehow gets resolved. I can't really say that for me, it didn't resolve anything. That's not really, I don't understand. And so that's was one issue. Another issue is this second girl that is kind of gets introduced and then somehow just gets, I don't know, the storyline just gets dumped and never mentioned again. And I feel like there were a few of those, and I'm just asking myself if it was necessary to build such a lore around it in the first half to then never mention half of those things in the end or by the end of the movie, then never resolve them.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. With the first point that I mean that they're hunted, that Mickey and his Stephen Yeun, his friend, are hunted by these criminals or have some beef with these criminals. I think it's a good starting point, or I mean, explains why they have to go on this spaceship and this expedition, and it also gets sort of sorted out at the end, but it's not that relevant anymore. And the girl, I think this sort of second love interest for Mickey at some point is, yeah, also a bit, yeah, she's a bit more relevant in the middle where sort of Mickey 17 almost has like a romantic scene with her, and there's some conflict between Mickey and Nash at that point, but by the end of the movie, she's not that relevant anymore. I mean, she does also appear in the scene where, in the sort of dinner scene, she's also in there, but I would say she's probably not that central to the movie. Maybe a couple of these things come from the book. This
Hmm.
movie is based on a science fiction book. I don't know, those characters are a bit more fleshed out in that film. And regarding the girl, I forget the character's name, but I
Yeah.
read that I think the actress who plays her, and I don't know if it's her girlfriend who dies, uh, Bong Joon-ho had seen them in a movie. I don't forget which one, and he liked them a lot, so that's why he cast them in this movie here.
Hmm.
Yeah, I have to look that up which movie it was, but nice detail. But yeah, I agree. Maybe those two themes or characters are not that essential. Maybe there could have been a few less scenes.
Hmm.
I think like maybe the movie is a bit long. It didn't feel for me when I was watching it, but maybe it could have been trimmed down on some places.
Hmm.
Any other things that you think are a bit too drawn out?
Yeah, I can't really say exactly what might have been drawn out, but I feel like um you could say it has some pacing problems, I guess. I think, for example, in the end, you could finish the movie earlier. Because, for example, the scene with kind of this dream that he has about the two villains in the very end, and just this explanation of why maybe he is pausing between pressing the button. I feel like that may not be the reason why, because they kind of make it look like um he is like his resolve is back again to destroy those backups, this biological storage backup of the expendables or however they're called. What were they called in the movie? It
Not
sounds like a
expendable.
Sylvester
They are
Stallone movie.
called, yeah, yeah, expendable.
But
No, actually, they are called expendable.
want to destroy this repository, right? With all the backups so that no more expendables can be generated, or also this machine that generates, right? And so he has this dream about the villains copying themselves and coming back. But I'm sorry, that's not the reason why. The reason why is that he is now he now knows that he is this very particular copy, and if he dies, it's not him who comes back, because obviously he already saw that him 17 and 18 are two different people, two different copies. And so he cannot really know that he will continue because he has a different personality. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I
Um,
feel like they are just giving this flashback or like this dream sequence, but for what reason, really? I didn't understand that. And in the very beginning as well, I feel like there were some scenes that if they don't get addressed anymore in the end, why are they even there? Like the whole sequence with the criminal that they owe money to, cool to establish why they had to leave Earth and why he was ready to do anything, even be an expendable for that. But did you really need to put so much detail into it if you really don't do anything with it anymore after this part of the movie ends?
yeah, regarding the last one, I don't know how many scenes we get with the villain. I think it's maybe two, so it's not too many.
What do you mean?
Well, I think from what I remember visually, I think there's one scene where Mickey and what's Stephen Yeun character's called again?
Uh,
Um,
Timo.
Timo, right?
Yeah.
And Timo are sort of in an alley, and they had sold some product, and then they get caught,
Mhm.
and then we get the scene where they are sort of in the lair of this villain, and they cut off the head, or they, yeah, with a
Mhm.
chainsaw or something.
Mhm.
So visually, I remember only those two scenes, so it's not too many. But you're right that there are a couple of instances where they there's a callback to the villains that Crime Boss has a spy on the ship, and they have to be careful. At least that's
Mhm.
Timo's main concern.
Mhm.
So yeah, maybe in some ways it could be shortened a bit.
Yeah, I
And
mean, it's not my place to say whether it can be shortened or not. For me, any movie that is over 2 hours long should be shortened, but I guess it depends on the narrative and what you're trying to say. But I just feel like, um, yeah, it's you can almost always shorten a movie that is over 2 hours long. The question is just how.
yeah, yeah, that's the difficult part. And why did you think that that was a dream scene, a dream sequence, the thing that
Well,
you mentioned?
because it's happening at the end of the movie. By that time, Mark Ruffalo's character is dead, and we know that. And Ilfa, Tony Collette's character, is said to be dead. We never see that she did, but he kind of says that either she killed herself or oh my God, like the things that we say, we're gonna be so flagged here. But anyway, or like in any case, she is found dead or something like this. And then he is there is this sequence where he goes to this area where this printing machine is, and she is there, and she is printing Mark Ruffalo out, right? And then it is a dream sequence because he is kind of he not doesn't wake up from it necessarily, but the way that it's put in the film makes you think that it is a dream and she is dead, and we know that, or he knows that, and there are a lot of surreal elements to it that make it look more dreamlike. And so that's the dream sequence that I'm talking about. You know which one, right?
Yeah. I know which one. Yeah, I would have to look back at it again. I visually, or maybe also from other design points, I there might be some elements that give you the impression that it's a dream sequence. When
Well,
I was,
okay, but if we say that it's not, then it
yeah,
again is something that never gets resolved because they never address it anymore. So I that's why I'm also assuming that it's a dream sequence because it's not like they find out that they got reprinted and they chase them or kill them or whatever. It's just the scene ends and that's it. You know?
yeah. So when I saw it, I interpreted that it was actually happening because before we get to the that the Mark Ruffalo died in the explosion, and we sort of hear from Mickey's narration, I think that they had thought that Toni Collette had killed herself, but it was sort of a rumor, they say, or it
Hmm.
wasn't sure. So that's why for me, um, yeah, that could have well been real.
Okay.
And so for me, that scene is actually quite important from a narrative standpoint because it sort of asks Mickey again, it's this theme of immortality, sort of. Does he want to keep on living in a way, or does he want to embrace his mortality and his fear of dying, which he had actually done before? I think quite at the beginning of the movie, Mickey said, "Oh, I don't. Dying is horrible, and I don't want to die." He says it multiple times. But maybe it's also partly because he wants to respect Mickey 18's memory, sort of in a way, by not keeping on and reprinting himself. And the other thing is the Mickey 17's character carries a lot of the guilt that he said, the guilt of, okay, maybe it was him that caused the death of his mother. So by not um, by not accepting the machine, by destroying it, because remember that after that scene we get shown that they blow up the machine, I think, right?
Hmm.
So by not accepting this machine, he's also sort of coming to terms with this guilt that he has, and then he's able to move on. And now his mission is being there for Nasha, who was there for a long, many of his lives that he lived.
Hmm.
So I think it's a very interesting scene, and I mean it would totally make sense that the I mean that the General Mark Ruffalo and his wife had a machine just for themselves and were able to reprint themselves. That seems like a possibility to me. I don't know. So yeah,
Yeah,
it could be a dream sequence.
that's kind of what I am talking about because for me, the reason for him to blow up the reprinting machine should be that he wants to be himself. He wants to stay. He embraces the fear of death, the guilt, and
Hmm.
everything that comes with being alive.
Hmm.
And that's the reason why they decide that that's it. We're not going to continue with this program, and not because the villains could reprint themselves. And that's kind
Yeah.
of where it trails off for me because that was supposed to be the begin or the meaning of this from the very beginning. But in the end, by including this sequence with Toni Collette and Mark Ruffalo, it kind of negates it in a way, and it's just like, well, okay, but that's not really why, but okay. If it was included somewhere else and it was a second reason for it, fine. But exactly because it's happening in the very end before he does that, it kind of makes it look like it's the primary reason when it actually is not. Or at least, like, based on the whole movie, it shouldn't be.
Yeah. It's a good point. What I guess it's multiple reasons why them destroy machine. I
Well,
mean,
yeah, of course, but I would say that the primary reason is probably you want to continue living your life the way that you are and not get split into multiple personalities, which
yeah.
brings me to my second point, which
Mhm.
ties very nicely with Severance and the whole innie outie story where people get split into two persons, right? I feel like it's a very interesting lens to look through this at both Severance and Mickey because this well, I mean, of course, they both actually talk about the question of the soul, right? And uh, they talk about it a little bit in Mickey 17, where they show those flashbacks to the program being introduced or banned on Earth and like stuff like that, exactly because of the question of soul splitting or somehow like that, you know? And the same goes for Severance because in the second season they talk about this question of whether innies and outies, like their respective innies and outies, have one soul or two separate ones. And there they introduce the thought. Of course, it's not official, it's just somebody who said that or who kind of assumes that in the series that the souls are separate. And so yeah, that's kind of the question of personality, of individuality, and um, yeah, it's also interesting why we are talking about it now and why it is such a topic,
Hmm.
such an important topic to talk about right now.
Yeah, and I think it's really interesting how that is discussed in the movie. I think more from a directorial standpoint, you mentioned that we have this scene at the beginning about I think it was it the creator of the printing machine that who was the first one to produce multiple copies of himself, and then we
Yeah, the
get
psycho
that,
boy.
yeah. And then after that is found out and they capture him and whatnot. There are these scenes where they're shown like the council, the world council or whatever discusses it. Okay, what should we do from an ethical standpoint, from the law standpoint and
Hmm.
philosophical and whatever. And I think I love the sort of conclusion at the end is a very practical one. That's okay. We don't know, or I don't know. That there isn't really a resolution to that conflict. But I think that
Hmm.
approach is sort of great. That it's there isn't really an answer for that,
Hmm.
or
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, it's definitely like a philosophical debate. It's not
yeah.
something that one movie could answer, of course, and not something that people could answer within a span of one session talking about it. But it's, I guess, you don't have to resolve it for in that way. For this specific topic, I would say you don't have to resolve it within this film, but the way that it deals with it, I think was all right. Like it introduces you have to think about it, you have to like sit with it. Also, why I laughed was because it reminded me the scene where Mark Ruffalo's character is there and he's like, "Thank you for inviting me," and they're like, "Yeah, you've been subpoenaed, actually." Thought that was
Yeah,
hilarious. That was
yeah,
also like a very Trump-esque thing to say.
yeah. And yeah, I mean, I think it's even Mickey who says the line. I mean, the narrator, Mickey 17 as a narrator, the voice who sort of sums up, okay, sort of saying like, okay, in the end, they didn't reach a conclusion. I don't remember the exact line, but I think that was a great way of summing that conflict up.
Mm,
I think the other way the movie is really practical in a sense, and on how they explain how the machine works. The Like we've been calling it the printing machine because essentially it's like a 3D printer but for humans, and then the mind is sort of downloaded in a hard drive and that gets re-implanted. So I think that's not too far off of how you might do that in the future. So that seems really reasonable. I think it's
yeah,
quite
and
grounded.
I feel like also what's interesting is that even though the set of characteristics and I mean memories, fine, but I'm also thinking about just the personality traits, right? They get imported into the body, but apparently in different like on different levels, like almost with different kind of how do you call that?
Yeah, different levels, or like I think of
Mhm.
a video game character where sort
Yeah, like the
one
bones,
aspect.
like yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
exactly.
So that's why we have two Mickeys that are pretty much like quite different from each other. The way that Nasha puts it is mild Mickey and habanero Mickey. So which again, like because you texted me because you texted me I'm gonna be a Mickey 18 to your Mickey 17. When she said that, I'm like, that fits perfectly. The one
Yeah.
the very mild and kind Mickey, Mickey
Mm.
17, and then the psycho Mickey who is always hating on everything. Very suitable for us.
Yeah.
Um, so you can see that either there is a flaw in the system where it imports the characteristics of a person, but it doesn't know the level to which they extend in the personality, or that means just again the different personalities that we have within ourselves, right? Like in one moment we can be nice and mild and kind, and then another we can be aggressive and hateful, you know. So I guess that's also a very interesting aspect to think about within this topic of personality in Mickey 17.
I think that's a really great way of thinking about it, that it's one part. And I mean, we ourselves, like as
Hmm.
humans, we go through our daily lives, and we are days where we're feeling great, and other days we're feeling shit, and sometimes this part of our personality gets more
Hmm.
accentuated and behave different in different scenarios. So I guess depending on the context, we parts of us get in hand.
Hmm.
There's one last thing I wanted to mention about the printer. I think one of the funniest moments for me is in one of the instances where Mickey gets printed, and the researchers are sort of in the background chatting to themselves, and Mickey sort of falls out of the printer and falls on his head. I think that physical comedy is amazing, as well as the scene you mentioned with Timo climbing over the fence or whatever and completely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
oh, that was great.
The other physical comedy scene is the dinner scene where Mickey starts eating a lot of steak. Yeah,
Mm.
it's really funny how he is there like munching on the steak. But
Mhm.
what's really funny later is when he sort of starts feeling sick, and I don't know if they had injected him already with this vaccine or cure, but then he sort of trips over a table and rolls
Mhm.
over, and that looked like Robert Pattinson did that stunt himself, so I thought
Mhm.
that was really hilarious as well.
Yeah, but also I feel like we started it wrong because it would have been better to lead with the more fun and more mild things, and then or no, like lead with the more dark things and finish off with the nice things. And now I feel like we started off with the nice things, and now we're gonna move to the bad things or to the more darker sides, which I wanted to talk about the whole aliens and imperialism topic.
Ah, sure, yeah.
Because obviously a big part of the movie is them coming to a new planet and essentially invading the planet, and the aboriginal species that live there are kind of, well, they want to kill them, right? Or the how do you call them, the settlers, the settlers want to kill the aboriginal species. And then Mark Ruffalo says also that they are aliens, and Nasha says, "We are the aliens." I
Mhm.
thought that was great. And of course, I just feel like in general, the topic of imperialism is something that we can probably talk about at length as well. And we can find a lot of movies that talk about it. Maybe we can pencil it somewhere for some topic sometime. Because in the past year or 2 years, this has been such a big theme. It's practically in every second movie, I think, that I watch, that it is present in some way. The the question of, well, the system versus people, or well, kind of people versus people as well, in a way, you know. I am like the best example I think of now is Kneecap, of course, which again you can talk about it as an own topic. But here again, it's present again, and um, the violence that is happening in this movie regarding to this, yeah, that was hard for me to watch. And always, if it's even slightly about like animal abuse, which kind of is a little bit here as well. I mean, it's hard to say whether you can call them animals in this case, but for us as like human beings, they look more like animals than humans. So I would say rather that than anything else. And that was kind of that's why I left the movie and I felt like I could cry right now. Like, let's go.
I mean, specifically hard for you was watching how they treated the, oh, I forget what the name of,
The
the creeper.
babies, yeah,
Yeah, the
the
baby creeper.
creepers, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, especially like when that scene where they had captured the creeper and Mark Ruffalo wants to kill the creeper and it's hanging over the goo. Yeah, that's hard to watch, and then that's where the tension starts wrapping up, or the clock starts ticking about, okay, that conflict has to be resolved because either the creepers are going to kill all the humans or the other way around.
Mhm.
So that's definitely a difficult conflict that they have. In the end, well, of course, there's the sacrifice of Mickey 18, which is quite heroic, and you sort of could see that coming, that he was going to do that.
Well, the movie's called Mickey 17, not Mickey
Yeah.
17 plus 18 or Mickey 18, so it was pretty clear what's gonna happen.
But what I found also hilarious is the in the aftermath where it gets revealed that the creepers were just laughing, that
Yeah,
they were
that
just doing the sound, but they weren't able to 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 kill the humans. They didn't have this ability.
well, I mean, I'm sure they would manage in some like have you seen the things that they did? Maybe they wouldn't kill them with the sound, but they would kill them with something else. Like
That's
they were
true.
not helpless. They were
Yeah.
not completely helpless. I'm sure they would be able to stand up for themselves.
Hmm.
But yeah, in any case, those scenes with the murder and the torture of those babies, essentially, that is true because they call them babies in the movie, especially because they call them babies. You're like, oh God, please stop, stop
Mm.
torturing. I don't know. That was hard to watch, but I feel like in general, for Bong Joon-ho, it's generally not. That's nothing that he shies away from. He can show violence, and he doesn't feel like he needs to shelter you from it. You can see it. You should see it, and
I guess that speaks towards him, that it's an animated creature. It's not a human creature, but you still feel a lot for them. You care for them. So, and well, for me, I think this is one thing I wanted to really talk about, the similarity between the Creepers and Mickey 17, because I feel like maybe from creature design, they seem really harmless, at least in their normal form, where they're, oh, what's this insect called? I
they
don't
look
know what,
yeah, like those bugs that live in.
in the wood. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know how they're called in English, huh? But yeah, they seem really innocent in that way, and you can also see from their first interaction that they want to help Mickey, and they're pretty communicative and sort of seem friendly. And Mickey himself is in that way. I think he's sort of always, he is a guy that you sort of care for. You want to help him because he seems so helpless or so lost or insecure or whatever. He has this quality, and that way he is, maybe that why he can relate. That's why he can relate to the creepers,
Mhm.
on that level. And one thought that I had, I mean, this is just my interpretation, but I mean, I'm probably way off here. I thought, well, the creepers, they seem to share this sort of, they are sort of this hive mind. They can communicate among themselves via, I don't know, sounds or telepathy or whatever. And I thought that, well, maybe Mickey is sort of sort of similar in that way, because he had these many lives, and maybe in some way he can connect with Mickey 18 in that way, or
Mhm.
he. I don't know how, but he knows how that feels. So
You
I
know,
think that was
the scene that I'm thinking about, not like super related to this, I guess, but just still the scene between the two Mickeys that I thought was just so nice, was when they were before they get caught, I feel like, or no, probably right after they get caught by Kai in the room, and then Nasha leaves and they're there together, and he's asking him how the dinner went, and then he's telling that he got poisoned basically, and Mickey 18 gets really angry. And then he turns away and he says, "It's not your fault." And I thought, oh, that's such a bonding moment, so sweet.
yeah,
And again, like, this is kind of something that, uh, like, if you think about generally the personality, like the different personalities that we are made up of, right? And we sometimes criticize ourselves and we are aggressive to ourselves, and that's kind of the same moment where normally I guess you would criticize yourself, and you can externalize this now because you see these two different characters, but normally it would be happening inside of you where you are screaming at yourself for doing something wrong, and saying that, oh, it's not your fault. That's actually like a second step towards not being aggressive to yourself and not criticizing yourself anyway. So that's kind of what I thought about when you were talking about the hive mind.
it's really nice how you put it. Yeah, I guess, and because there are two Mickeys and you can see them and then flesh and blood, I guess maybe it's easier that they can say that to themselves and sort of accept
Hmm.
themselves
Yeah.
because internally I think a lot of the times it's super hard to that you
To be
forgive
nice to
yourself.
yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and you forgive yourself internally. That's really hard sometimes, and having this sort of presence or sort of friend or other self of you outside is well, it's really nice for a change, I guess.
Yeah, and also the scene where he is again talking about his mother, and Mickey 18 is like, that's not like you did nothing. You know that, right?
Yeah,
And this just the few interactions they have with each other, they are meaningful. So in
yeah,
that way, I would say I'm okay with that. It's not happening all the time. It's good that it's just a few interactions that are like that, where it's very consistent with the characters as well. Mickey 18 is not the type of personality who would just be having such a candid discussion with somebody, and I feel like when it happens, you really appreciate it.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, those are like little gems
Hmm.
sprinkled through the movie. And I think what's also really essential is the voice performance or the narrator's voice
Yeah.
that Patterson Pattinson chooses for Mickey 17. I mean, that voice, I read that he inspired himself, one of Steve Buscemi's role was his inspiration
Mhm.
for that voice and that accent. And I mean,
That
that voice
actually
is,
makes total sense. I can totally hear that now.
because it's such a weird voice, like from a sound perspective, it's quite, how would you put it? It's not a nice voice to listen to, and it's very jumpy in the tones that he does. But like we said, you really care for him as well, and
Mhm.
uh, how he talks, and yeah, I think that, like I said, that's why you can really relate to him, and then maybe, but that's why the Mickey 18 can open up to him as well. And maybe one more aspect, I think you hinted at it before, was uh, when we talked about Kai and Nasha as well. And what did you think about the sex scenes? I think you hinted at it that maybe you had some thoughts
Um,
about that.
I mean, there were not really any sex scenes, were there? Okay, there was one in the beginning, but I mean, it's kind of so like interwoven with the narration that you don't really consider it like a separate scene almost. And then
Yeah,
the the threesome that never
yeah,
happened. I mean, I'm glad it didn't, because like that would be so like, come on. that was also very obvious that it was going to be at least introduced in some way, which is fine. Like I totally get it, but it's good that it never happened. We didn't really need that for the movie, I feel like. And of course, it would be very inconsistent with what was going on in the movie at that moment.
I have to say I'm on Nash's side. I mean, that sounds very interesting. I
I
mean,
mean, I guess I don't know. I I guess it does, and I understand. Like as I said, I understand why
yeah.
they kind of at least hinted towards it, or yeah, almost kind of tried to introduce it before it gets interrupted. But as I said, it would just be very unsuitable for whatever
Yeah.
was going on in the movie at that time, because obviously not consistent with the characters.
hmm I just brought it up because I wanted to say that, I mean, the sex scenes are not just, I don't know, to show Nash's connection between Mickey and how much they care for each other, and maybe this other scene, the threesome scene, like as a shock value, or maybe as a also sort of philosophical question is what would happen. But it's actually relevant to the plot as well, because almost at the end of the movie, when the Mickeys are outside and talking to the creepers, and then Mickey starts to make these symbols um, towards the camera just to communicate to Nasha that she had to save the baby, which at the beginning of the movie were these drawings that he did of the different
Mm,
sex positions they were trying out. So I mean, I thought it was great that sex is not, I mean, that you have a movie where sex is shown, but also it's sort of relevant to the, or it is relevant to the plot as well. I mean, in a really silly way, but I think that it's great from a narrative perspective and also hilarious.
mhm. Well, that's also makes me think of the in the very beginning where the the sex scene is actually happening and they are talking about sex being banned on the ship. So
hmm
that's again another thing that just never gets talked about ever again, and people are having sex. So it's just like, yeah, okay. I don't know.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
In
Yeah.
general, I would say still, I after discussing it with you, I still think that the subplots that I was right about undeveloped subplots, because we found even more, I feel like, while we were talking, where things didn't get resolved or didn't get, yeah, any kind of a resolution in the end. So
Yeah,
the
I think
question is, why did you need to introduce them to begin with?
I thought they were never uninteresting, but I could see that you could cut some of these moments, maybe the ones with the crime boss and the Sky character. Also, I thought maybe the sort of the story with the creator of the printer and how he was the
Hmm.
first one to copy himself. I mean, I think that's a bit more relevant to the plot, but it's sort of a what's do you know what the narrative term is? Sort of not an ellipsis, but like this insertion sort of in the plot that's like a, well, doesn't matter. But I think that those scenes could have also come from the book, and he decided to keep them. Maybe they weren't entirely necessary for the movie. Maybe they would have worked better, like if this was turned into a series. I always enjoy them, but yeah, maybe they could have been cut or trimmed somehow. I don't know how, but yeah, what you could think about that.
We're only here to criticize, not to suggest solutions. Come on.
Yeah, no, hopefully we can learn from this movie for some of our own projects down the road. Huh? Any final closing thoughts about the movie?
Well, just thinking, I would say if I have to start with the criticisms to finish off with the good things, I would say underdeveloped subplots is still a big thing for me. Generally, the a lot of slots or a lot of the narrative was almost too much for the dimension of the film. And the question is whether you really had to introduce all of that. I would say the satire of the system of the villains or of the kind of the government, if you will, is a little bit heavy-handed. Yeah, not very subtle, and I think it would really probably would benefit from making it a little bit more subtle. I understand it's a comedy, I understand it's satire, but as we said already, making yet another Trump character is just already not very interesting. But what I appreciated is definitely the discussion on the personality, the individuality of a person, and also on the imperialism and kind of the invasion of somebody else's land, I guess, and how you go about it. I mean, no matter how you go about it, an invasion is still an invasion, but uh, in that sense, in the end, they kind of work out a way to be together, to like live together on one planet, I guess. Yeah, so I guess those are my takeaways.
Yeah, I agree with your criticisms, but for me, I can overlook them because I guess three main things. So one is Robert Pattinson's performance, so
Mhm.
his voice and the heart that shines through of his vocal performance of Mickey's character, that you really get to care and love this person. And then just how you can hear his voice throughout most of the film as a narrator and as a character. I think the music is also really important. It just, for me, it just flows and carries you through the scenes. And the last thing is the different topics it talks about, like it's philosophical a bit. It's criticism about the societies and like I said, people versus system. So yeah, those multiple themes, I think that's sprinkled throughout that makes it really enjoyable for me. But in the end, yeah, it's this lovable Mickey character and that he gets some peace at the end, if you will, that I can really be happy for him. That's why I like this movie a lot.
No, but I would say, yeah, like the Robert Pattinson is definitely a highlight in this movie, and the fact that he gets to play two different characters is also very interesting because, of course, that's unusual for a movie where essentially you play the same person, but just two different versions of one person. I guess that's also quite interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so that's it for this episode. I hope you join us next time. Can we preview a bit about
Oh, yes, please.
you go ahead?
So we want to talk about um, Adolescence, which is a new Netflix series that just came out recently. That is from the team of Boiling Point, which we love, both the series and the movie. So this Adolescence is talks about a little bit of a different topic, or quite a different topic, but a very exciting one and the one that we would like to talk about in more detail. So yeah, that's gonna be at least next week or in 2 weeks we're gonna talk about it, and maybe even for more than one episode.
Yeah, that will be interesting. Yeah, so feel free to join us for the next one. Go watch Mickey 17 if you haven't already, or drop us some comments about what you thought about the movie, and then catch you next time.